Welcome to Matters Financial, Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you as always for stopping by. Home thoughts, I couldn't resist some Alexander Pushkin. I don't know if you've ever read any of his, he's wonderful. I gaze forward without fear. 5 words, strong, aren't they? I like this photograph, the London Eye. I spent half my life in London. What a wonderful city it is. And then this one, which I find very powerful, Pushkin again, my dreams, what has become of their sweetness? What indeed has become of my youth? The other city where I spent a lot of time is Mombasa. And on that note, here's a scenic sunset scene in Mombasa. Final Pushkin, but whom to love, to trust and treasure? Who won't betray us in the end? And who'll be kind enough to measure our words and deeds as we intend? Final home thought, beam me up, photography of the day from the Smithsonian Magazine. Political Reflections, Bloomberg View editorial board, the duration of the latest Syrian ceasefire may matter less than its genesis. Russia, Turkey and Iran brokered the agreement without US involvement, a worrying sign of the waning regional influence of the world's only superpower. Strategically, the gains of the various parties at the table are even greater. Russia will have more influence in the Middle East than at any time since the Soviet era. Iran will have overland access to Beirut, increasing its sway in Iraq and allowing it to ferry arms and other supplies to the Lebanese group Hezbollah. The Turks will get stability on their southern border, I'm not sure about that, while ensuring that the Syrian Kurds, whom they tie to a Kurdish terrorism movement in Turkey, don't gain a foothold in an independent state. Assad will gain a few more years, if not more, in power. I concluded by saying Putin's move was decisive and conclusive. That is the point. The meaning of Aleppo, 19th of December. I said Aleppo is the moment when the trend changed in Russia and Iran and Turkey, well, not really, are now in the ascendancy. Those in their palaces in Riyadh, Doha and Istanbul need to appreciate how fluid this moment is and how exposed they are now. Then I quoted from Ozymandias, met a traveller from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless slaves of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. And I pose the question, who will be Ozymandias? Will the disruption make things worse or better? I don't know. I'm guardedly optimistic. This is a photograph I liked of Donald Trump. The US administration is 100% certain in the role that Russia played in election-related hacking. This is the State Department spokesman, John Kirby. There's no question about what Russia did to sow doubt and confusion and getting involved through the cyber domain into our electoral process, he told Christiane Amanpour. Trump, Julian Assange said a 14-year-old could have hacked Podesta. Why was DNC so careless? Also said Russians did not give him the info. Russia Insider described that as Donald Trump savagely rips the CIA over Russia hack delay. I think WikiLeaks and Assange have been extremely cute, and I think Russian interference in the US election was non-linear and seriously sophisticated. And note the non-linear bit to say that they did not give us the email. Does it mean that if I give it to somebody else to give it to you, it's not me who's giving it to you? That's the answer to the question. Syria, a Syrian man rides a motorbike past a cemetery in the rebel-held town of Douma on the eastern outskirts of Damascus. Seems to be, that photograph seems to represent what has happened. The Saudi survivor, there were 3 killers at Rain and nightclub on New Year's. ISIS, which once used Turkey as a transit point and a sanctuary, now denounces it as an enemy and has calibrated its assaults to cause maximum divisions. This is the problem for Turkey now, the blowback. International markets, Bitcoin hit an all-time high as the currency controls drive fear, puts usual safe havens in the shade. Have a look at this. And then just as an aside, Beijing from the air as smog blankets the city, just otherworldly and alarming. Jim Scuto. Chinese yuan surged most in a year overnight in offshore trading following the liquidity squeeze in the offshore yuan as Beijing chokes flows. That's why we've seen a dramatic sell-off in the dollar this morning. Zero Hedge talks about the overnight rates as this is probably not normal. And on the 2nd of January, I wrote, Bitcoin appears to have become a proxy for Chinese capital flight. The best performing currency last year was a cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, rallied 126%, and I said it's completely correlated to Chinese capital flight. Christine Liu, somebody I quoted, if you're raising money from Chinese investors in 2017 and that money isn't already sitting outside of China, then have fun signing MOUs. Have a look at this gold versus Bitcoin chart. On the 30th of December, I said my optimal portfolio at this moment looks like long Bitcoin, short gold spread. Even if Mr. Jane again ends up digging too deep a hole, it will mostly be Mr. Lutnick's problem, rather than that of the broader financial system. This is the FT's Lex page putting the boot into Andrew. Emerging, let's look at currency markets. Euro 105.57, dollar index 102.01, Japanese yen 115.87, Swissy 101.68, pound, oh, that got as high as 123.50 a minute ago, 123.13. The Australian dollar 0.7306, India rupee 67.84, South Korean won 1187.27, the Rial 321.67, Egyptian pound 18.2140, and the Rand firmer 13.5410. It's a bit of a bounce. Some of these Egyptian pound, look at that, 18.21. Dollar yen, big yen rebound. I think some of these Chinese fears have spilled over, boosted the yen. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart, bit of profit taking now. Let's see how long that lasts. Euro dollar, look at this. Back at 105.58, bear in mind we had a 103 handle not too long ago. Commodity markets, gold got a little bit of a push up the last few sessions. Yeah, up here, 1177. Last crude oil, $53.70 in New York. Remember my very bold call saying it won't get above 60 for the whole of the year. Mexican peso plunges to its lowest level since the currency was redominated in 1993, and I'm one of the few people who remember that because I was running the Mexican trading book in those years. Summer sunrise in the Caucasus Mountains. This is Andrew Majovsky. Lovely photograph. Sub-Saharan Africa, openness and dialogue are the traits that Gambia needs at the moment, and not media closures and arbitrary arrests and detentions. This is Adama Barrow in Gambia. US and UK ambassadors have been so supportive since I was elected as president. This morning we held our second meeting. 12th of December, I wrote about a trend change is at hand. I said Africa is a very non-linear place, but recent elections from President Buhari of Nigeria through President-elect Barrow in the Gambia, through President-elect Akufo-Addo of Ghana, surely signalling a trend change is at hand. And then I quoted Nick Cheeseman, there will be more repression in the short term, and it will look worse, but I am positive about democracy in Africa in the long run. Social and economic change will drive democratization over 30 years, but there's a barrier of pain we will have to go through to get there. I said then, make no mistake about the direction of travel, and things could speed up. So my conclusions are Jammeh is on his way, and that's for sure, notwithstanding his army chief standing by the embattled President Jammeh, and I think he'll be going as well. He said, may I please seize this opportunity to renew to Your Excellency the assurance of the unflinching loyalty and support of the Gambia Armed Forces. General Usman Badije wrote in a letter to Jammeh published in a pro-government newspaper. Very interesting piece in the New Statesman called In the Last Days of Robert Mugabe, with considerable trepidation. It's a long read, well worth reading, do take a look. With considerable trepidation, I took the lift to the 6th floor of the Ministry of Justice in central Harare to interview the minister. It wasn't just that I lacked the accreditation foreign journalists must obtain to work in Zimbabwe. The interview had been arranged through unofficial back channels. The minister, Emerson Mnangagwa, also happens to be the vice president, Robert Mugabe's notoriously brutal chief enforcer for the past 36 years. And the most feared man in the country. They don't call him the crocodile for nothing, said a Zimbabwean businessman who knows him well. He never says a word, but suddenly he bites. He's very dangerous. Mnangagwa, still powerfully built at 74, proved courteous enough as we sat in deep leather armchairs in his bright and spacious office. It was not in his interest to be hostile, not this time. He is determined to succeed Mugabe, and he will need Western support to rebuild his shattered country. If he does, which is presumably why he gave me an almost unprecedented interview. Age 92, the world's oldest head of state, Robert Mugabe, is fading. He falls asleep in meetings, suffers memory lapses, and stumbles on steps. Delivered the wrong speech at the opening of Parliament in September last year. As long as 2008, a WikiLeaks cable from the US ambassador reported that he had terminal prostate cancer, and he frequently flies to Singapore for unspecified medical treatment, blood transfusions perhaps, or steroid injections. A diplomatic source talked to Mugabe's dramatic deterioration in the last 2 years, and said he could go at any point. His so-called Lacoste faction, so Mugabe's nickname is the crocodile, the clothing company's emblem is a crocodile, has hit back hard. This is talking about Mugabe fighting with Joyce Majuru and then fighting Grace Mugabe, and saying that the war vets have turned on Mugabe himself. In July they issued a communique condemning his dictatorial tendencies, which have slowly devoured the values of the liberation struggle. In November, they sacked him as a patron, saying Zimbabwe is engulfed not only by a political crisis, its economy is in meltdown as well. The regime can rig elections, but they can't rig the economy. Manifestations of economic collapse already apparent driving around central Harare. I saw outside every bank the long queues that form before dawn each day, because withdrawals are now limited to $50 or less per person per diem. Industrial estates are shuttered. Unemployment exceeds 80%. Street vendors, beggars, and at night teenage prostitutes proliferate. The small number of adults who are employed mostly work in a public sector bloated by ghost jobs reserved for ZANU-PF supporters. They used to be the grain basket of southern Africa, and here we are importing maize to prevent us starving. Government faces an increasingly grave problem of its own. It is running out of money to pay the security forces on which it depends for its survival, and the people's anger is spreading to rank-and-file soldiers and policemen. Tende Betty told me how during one protest last summer he was chased down by an unmarked vehicle whose occupants told him, "We've been sent to arrest you, so please run away." Bitty said it's only their bosses that are eating, they are not. And then over lunch at his charming old home in rural Sussex a few years ago, Dennis Norman, a white farmer who served in 3 of Mugabe's cabinets between 1980 and 1997, told me of his last meeting with the president after losing his farm before he left for Britain in 2003. I asked, where did it all go wrong? He replied, has it gone wrong? I said, I know it's gone wrong. You know it's gone wrong. He paused before replying softly, it's not going right, is it? He was secretive, seemed not to need friends, mistrusted everyone, devious and clever. He was the archetypal cold fish, said Lord Carrington, talking about how he was very close to Britain. When Margaret Thatcher was forced to resign, he said, who organised for our independence? Let me tell you, if it hadn't been for Mrs. Thatcher, none of you would be here today. I'm sorry she's gone. In 2008, I visited his grave in Heroes Acre. Her grave, this is his first wife, a monument by Zimbabwe's independence fighters on Harare's western fringe. Fresh flowers lay on the black marble. My guide said Mugabe brought them every week early in the morning when no one was around. The whole system is infested with leeches sucking the remaining blood from the rotten corpse of Zimbabwe. Variously named Disgrace, Grasping Grace, or Gucci Grace, to reflect her extravagant foreign shopping trips, the First Lady knows her power will evaporate once her husband dies, and she needs to protect her 3 children and enormous wealth. I'm ruling around completely. For now, at least, Mugabe is the front runner, and that on the face of it is bad news for Zimbabwe. He's associated with the darkest periods of our history, Bitty told me. He's really, really bad. He's toxic. He's killed a lot of people. 25th of July last year, I said countries like Zimbabwe feel like they are right at the edge, an edge that Hunter S. Thompson described. The edge there is no honest way to explain it, because the only people who really know it, where it is, are the ones who have gone over. Special operations, this is an article in The Intercept, deployments in 33 African countries in 2016. Just in 2006, just 1% of commandos sent overseas were deployed in the US Africa Command area of operations. In 2016, 17.26% of all US Special Operations forces are deployed abroad or sent to Africa. Dollar Rand, that's been behaving well, 13.55 for now. I think it's because the politics has quietened down a little bit. The Egyptian pound, big bounce after it traded about 1950, just before year end. Seeking tranquility around the Red Sea. Interesting article in Strat 4. The rationale behind the GCC's interest in Northeast Africa is fairly straightforward. Gulf states are compelled to improve their relationships with Northeastern African countries for security purposes. Installing bases in and enhancing military ties with African countries gives Gulf states an added layer of protection against conventional military attacks. In fact, the UAE has already begun to develop military installations in Eritrea. That's an interesting point. It speaks to the rehabilitation of Eritrea. I participated in an inside story regarding Equatorial Guinea. If you haven't had a look at that, do take a look. I thought that was pretty unspoken. Kenya's worsening drought seen hitting coffee production. The latest onset of Kenya's second rainy season delayed coffee bush flowering. And the subsequent drought will hurt the size and quality of the nation's Arabica crop. It's going to hurt a lot more than coffee, because coffee has over time fallen dramatically in terms of earnings and in terms of production. Kenya, of course, is the largest exporter of black tea, and we should see higher tea prices, lower tea supply. Rainfall between November and January has been poor. Michael Joseph, who is a friend and now the chairman of Kenya Airways, went to visit the president. I like the photograph that the State House put out. If you're interested in Kenya Airways' share price data, the link is there as well. The World Bank has unearthed a massive fraud, they're saying, at RBR. World Bank audit found that RBI executives bribed public officials, manipulated accounts, and created convoluted ownership in operational structures with the aim of defrauding lenders. This is not looking good, and probably explains to us why all of a sudden there's been talk about them selling out. Then Chuma's 3-year reign at Kenya Power came to an end. Kengen CEO Albert Mugabe's term was extended for a year. That's a good decision, I think. Kenya shilling, big move down. When I looked at it this morning, 103.675. We need to keep an eye on that. And then let me finish off. I hope I can take some evocative pictures in 2017, says David Yarrow. The journey starts very soon. Look at this photograph of the elephants. It's pretty fantastic. Safaricom unchanged yesterday. Nation Media, which got badly hammered in 2016, dumped 5.37%. Britam, which rallied 26% the previous session, corrected 7.93% yesterday's session. And there was a bit of spillover. Jubilee was well traded. Kenya Re was well traded as well. Standard Chartered, the only banking stock to appreciate last year, pushed 1.06% higher yesterday. Barclays was up 1.71%. Looks a cheap share to me. Co-op Bank rallied a muscular 3.46% yesterday. As I said, Kenya Power, they've appointed a new CEO, rallied 2.5% to close at 8.20. It's trading higher. Today, Kengen, we've already discussed, egregiously undervalued at the current market price. And Kenol Cobra, which was a big bull outlier in 2016, posting a total return of just under 50%. Saw heavy trading but closed unchanged at 15. If you need to track the Nairobi Securities Exchange, you can just log in and keep it running and look at it whenever you fancy. Just go to rich.co.ke. There's a small process, get a password, change that password, and you're off and running. It's free. Once again, thank you for stopping.